Good information is very important when you're trying to make a decision, especially when you're a company like the Disney Company. For several years, they've been donating to research out at UCLA that's made to find out what the generation from 10 to 24 years old is interested in pop culture. Well, thankfully, those results have been published, and for some reason, they don't line up at all with the kind of content that Disney is making. Let's talk about why Disney might be ignoring their own data here on That Park Place. I want to talk about this because we haven't talked about this on this channel, but this is a study out of UCLA and the Center for Scholars and Storytellers. They do this frequently. It's called Reality Bites, Teens and Screens. And within the last month or so, this came out, and they do research into people between the ages of 10 and 24. They consider that to be teenage. There are scientific reasons why they don't consider you an adult until you're at the age of 24. Your brain's not fully developed until that point. Might be a good case for not making any permanent changes here, but they put a lot of work into it. It's interesting.
Hey, wait a minute. Who's that logo right there?
That's right there. Thanks to our sponsors, Disney, Roblox, and the funders for Adolescent Science Translation here. So Disney paid for this, which makes it even more interesting that maybe Disney is not quite.
They did one last year too, and there was one big difference between this year and last year, and I'll get into it when we get into this version.
Yep. I've got them both. So
no, you know why Disney is open to this modification stuff? They already removed Mickey Mouse's tail. Remember, he used to have a tail. Once they started into that road, that's how we got where we are today.
Wait, Mickey doesn't have a tail anymore?
Mickey needs his tail back. Sew it back on, Disney.
When did I miss this?
Have you been to a Disney park? He had no tail.
That's why I'm surprised I'm on the show, but no.
Well, now you know. He's tailless. He's been body modified.
I don't like this.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting things here. I won't go too deep into the methodology, but again, 10 to 24-year-olds, they say survey questions regarding romance and sex were not shown to younger adolescents, 10 to 13. Hey, I guess they didn't ask Disney about that one. Otherwise, Disney would have wanted them to weigh in on it. But they talk a lot about their methodology. It is reformatted in a way that's a little bit more easy to digest here. But this is not a right-leaning study or anything like that. But what I wanted to go down to is I was looking at page 8 of this study here. Topics teens say they want to see. And again, we're talking 10 to 24-year-olds. So this includes people in college, people who are, I'm going to say college age, and people who are above college age, although that gets a little bit higher.
I need to help the researchers here with the word teen. Clearly, there's a misunderstanding of what that means.
Right.
What does a 10-year-old and a 24-year-old have in common? Really? Come on.
So in asking what they wanted to see, and I know that Pro already knows this, and Tom, you probably already know this. If you look at this full list right here,
explosions.
The number one item, hopeful, uplifting content with people beating the odds. Okay. So
that'd be kaju.
Action in or fight scenes may include guns and violence. People with lives like my own, and then superheroes.
There we go. I'll go with that one.
There we go. Friendships and social groups, popular and unpopular. Crime/true crime. People with lives unlike my own. So
that gets them all, doesn't it?
Yeah. Content that doesn't include sex or romance. I don't think they differentiate between sex and romance, by the way. So this is looking at some of the questions that they said they asked. I think they link these two things together.
This is where I was going to come in and say I think they modified some things for this year's version, because the big difference between this year's version and last year's version is that last year's version had it to where they said they wanted to see more straight relationships and regular friendships because they were confused.
So they consider straight relationships to be regular friendship. That's a
well, what I got from the study is that they're sick and tired of being bombarded with nothing but sex, and now this whole like gender stuff has to do with nothing but that, really, if you think about it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point, the reasoning behind this, from what I gathered from the study, because I found out about it through this Christian organization, was that we have a whole group of young folks who don't know how to have a regular relationship with somebody. In the hookup culture, the FWB culture, the, whatever, insert your app here culture, that's what they're dealing with now. And they don't have regular friendships. They don't have regular relationships anymore. Right.
And I think this clouds the idea because I think this lends into that idea that every relationship could potentially lead to something physical, which I
think that's why I think they altered something in this year's version of it, so they didn't say that again, because I think they're trying to obfuscate and hide that fact.
Yeah.
So I think they just made it sex in general. But
yeah, and they're saying content that doesn't include sex or romance, and then family life and relationships, and then we're down here to number 10, so we're halfway down the list, and they go racial minorities, then mental health and illness, dystopian and or apocalyptic, which was tied with mental health and illness. Hilarious. Lifestyles of the working class, sports, romance and or sex, lifestyles of the super rich or famous, systemic injustice. Non-binary and LGBTQIA plus identities. And I just set off the alarm bells. I talked about election and that in the same live stream here. All the way at the bottom, not all this stuff down here. And then if you go for just people who identify as such, it is the number one priority, and then racial minorities, then mental health, and then number 4 is hopeful and uplifting content. I'm going to point something else right here out. Rankings for people of color, pretty close, actually. Action, which is number 2 over here, is number 1 here. Superheroes is number 3 over here, and number 2 for people of color. Racial minorities, more important for people who are racial minorities. Hopeful and uplifting content, very close here. And 5 for both groups is friendship and social groups. So people of color here and generalized adolescence, pretty much in line, other than a higher priority on racial minorities.
Are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say that quote unquote minorities and quote unquote the non-minority essentially think the exact same way now, but the individuals in the alphabet category are way on a different frame of thinking?
Yeah.
Can we do that? Is that allowed? I don't know the new rules on YouTube.
Yeah, and maybe I've said the alphabet combination that I shouldn't say over and over again here, but I see a very narcissistic tendency over here in that top right corner. I think it's strange.
They've ostensibly become a radicalized group, if you think about it.
Well, and it's almost meaningless now, because so many of those letters, you have people who are getting into this category because they think it's cool. And people can be mad at me for saying that. That's fine. But it's true.
When you got 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 3 of a movie star's kids all transitioning,
right?
Then yeah.
Teenagers who don't fit in. And so to find a group, they take on one of these things. So they're non-binary, or they can't get a date, so they're asexual, which is great.
Right. And some of these are so ineffectual that they're putting a label on something because they would prefer to have the label, because they don't want to be in this generalized list. That's where the evil people are. You're not on the right-hand side of this list, the top one or the bottom one. Well, you're one of those people. That's the problem in America. I also want to point out further down in the list, what activities do adolescents prefer? Go to see a movie during opening weekend, which I'm going to say, based on the figures, I don't think they're doing that these days. So we have people who want to see, hopeful, uplifting action content with people like themselves and superheroes. And statistically speaking, they're saying they want to go to see a movie during opening weekend. Well, explain the Marvels to me.
Yeah, look, I'm starting to run up against like this being unbelievable. So I'm going to ask, did McKinsey do this study?
No, they did not. Well, they might have been involved. I'm going to do a control F,
my whole thing is like, I feel like this year was manipulated in a different way to try to get the results they wanted, and they still didn't, because the last one was so glaring at how it showed that they are completely out of touch.
Yeah. And for those of you who are not aware, this is 2023. So this is 1 year earlier. And as if Disney didn't have this data.
Yeah, they put them out so last year's would be this year's, So, yeah.
Right. So the same issue here. They didn't put people of color on here in the same way. But again, bottom of the list right here. And then after that, immigration, partying, and drugs. There are so many things here that I would associate with a Hollywood movie right now that are bottom of the list, bottom quartile here, if we want to get fancy with the.
Well, that's exactly the problem. That shows you exactly what like, that's the thing. They have the answers right in front of their face, right? It's not like it's that hard or difficult to see. Just kind of like that Grace Randolph thing earlier. It's like, yeah, Grace, if you'd listen to the actual people who've been saying this stuff for a while, right, you know, the people who actually go see these movies, you know, the people who've made these movies hits, right? You know, there's a reason why we've been more right than we have wrong, like you moron, right? Like, come on here already, get with the program. It's because we've been trying to tell you, people don't care about this crap in their movies.
Yes.
They don't care if the Jaws shark is non-binary or not. They just want to know if it's going to eat people. That's it.
I'll tell you what, I mean, a couple of things on this. One, 10 to 24 is a little bit too wide there. I think that's really important to understand when you're looking at like people going through puberty versus people who have actually gone through puberty, what they would actually think about romance and so forth, and those kind of themes. That might change greatly on either side of that spectrum right there. And if we're looking at the election itself and some of the results from not only polling, but from those results that were, you know, that everybody knows from last night. If you look, I mean, there were some like 18 to 25 year olds that were switching towards the conservative side of the spectrum by as much as like 25 points in some demographics. It's huge. It's massive. And so that right there, I think, is reflective of this changing sentiment when it comes to entertainment and culture as well.
Yeah. And Gen Z is really came through big. They really did. We've had a lot of. We also saw a trend towards men actually voting for a change. Well done. Men, you actually make the difference. You're the ones who bear the brunt of society, whether or not, you know, you realize it or not. I know you're attacked and demonized regularly, but you know, you're the ones that go to war. You're the ones that do the bulk of the bad jobs that nobody wants to do. So you should have a say. Take advantage of that. Vote. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, when looking at this, I see, first of all, the fact that this is essentially, by the way, Disney, of course, as we've brought up many, many times, they're also a news media organization. They want 18 to 24-year-olds paying attention to the news. I don't think that that's something that they actually expect them to get into here, but they know what that demographic wants. They literally know. They have the data. They have paid for the data. These are giant corporations. They know what the data looks like, and yet they still want to deny what they should be doing with all of this. I had the supposed plot leak for Captain America: Brave New World that I was going to bring into this, but there's really no point now in all of it.
Well, yeah, because they're reshooting it again for the fourth time.
I think they're giving up on this movie at this point, but the joke still stands, doesn't it? Yeah. I think that now is the time for self-reflection, just like 4 years ago and 8 years ago were the times for self-reflection here for companies like Disney. And the fact that we just had a show like Agatha all along, which I don't think there was a straight character in the entire show. Maybe Mrs. Hart was straight in that one. And that's supposed to be a children's brand, right? But it ended up being marketed as a show for wine moms and would only be appropriate for wine moms. So what is the problem with Disney exactly? Are they trying to shift from one demographic to another? Are they giving up on the entire below 24 demographic here? And I'm not even saying below 24 men, although they seem to have done that with Star Wars, or below 24 women. Is this just it? Is this it for Hollywood? Like, can they adapt at this point?
Oh, yeah, I'm really not sure, because the culture there, the Hollywood bubble, as it were, the Southern California bubble, as it were. So it I mean, look at the stories coming out of Hollywood. They're almost encased specifically within that bubble. So that's why the reality that they feature in their films and television series and so forth don't really comport to basically anybody else's lived experience. I don't even know if they even care about what anybody else is going through or attempting to make their content resonate with with individuals, whether it comes to certain areas of the country or when it comes to the various parts of the world. I just don't know if they have it within them to even try, much less even want to.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.